please use the hashtag LibWest16 and our LibWest handle, which is on the screen there as well, please. So to continue with our using library spaces and exhibition areas, we have Barry Houlihan up next. And Barry is an archivist at NUIG also. And he has worked on theatre and performance collections such as the Druid Theatre Archive, Music for Galway Archive, the Galway Arts Festival Archive, and also human rights archives such as the Kevin Boyle Archive. Barry is a project team member of the Abbey Theatre and Gate Theatre Digital Archive projects and part of the team working on the Druid Theatre Oral History project. And I don't know how he finds the time, but Barry is also a PhD candidate in the School of English in NUIG, and he's focusing on theatre, politics and society in Ireland from 1955 to 1979. Impressive, Barry. I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks so much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be back at my alma mater of UL as well, speaking as a Limerick man. I spent many a long hour, but many a happy hour as well in the Glucksman Library over my time here in UL. So it's great to be back and looking forward to see the library later on. But nowadays I'm based not too far up the road in Galway, in NUIG at the Hardiman Library, where I'm an archivist. And what I'm going to cover today is some of my experiences of recent projects where, although as an archivist and we work at managing collections, preserving collections, cataloguing, making them accessible, we try to keep a balance of maybe 60-40% of your time on cataloguing, maybe 40% to outreach and engagement. Probably over the last year or two, close to 90-100% of my time nearly has been on engagement outreach over various projects. And a lot of that has come through exhibitions, which a few examples are on screen here, and we'll take them as kind of case studies for today. But that kind of outreach and engagement is actually, it's been a learning curve, obviously, for many of us, myself included, and especially myself included, to do these new large-scale exhibitions. But it's been a really, really enjoyable part of the job. And part of that has been really important to build new connections on campus with academic partners, funding partners, community as well. These are exhibitions for the public, not just for the academic, not just that academic space, but also for the public, for school groups, primary school, secondary school, and so on. Perhaps just to think a little about what an exhibition actually is, and I found this book really, really excellent. It's a newly published book by an academic in Royal Holloway in London, Georgina Guy, and she defines the exhibition as a dynamic context in which established traditions of display and performance interact, a framework in which in recent years performance has grown, an arrangement where it has flourished and shown vigorous life. And I think what really Guy gets at really well there is actually exhibitions aren't just you spend so much time picking beautiful books or items or archives, putting them on display, turning your back and letting people look at them. There is now an expectation of an experience. And that's something we've tried to build on, is that exhibitions are something you engage with, you take something away from, and there is, actually a performative element. The archives, the library, the books themselves should perform and tell their own story. So, in the hope of doing at least some of these things in our exhibitions, we had a first experience of it. And again, keeping suitably with the theme of performance and exhibitions, with our first major exhibition being Performing Ireland, 1904 to 2014, which was exploring 110 years of Irish theatre history. But again, that exhibition served a few various purposes. So it was the first exhibition in our new exhibition space. But it also launched the Abbey Theatre Digital Archive project to researchers for the first time. So it was to give that archive a real bump to the public, to get some press coverage for this major project, which took up so much of our resources for 3 years and was really a landmark global digitisation project. And being as well as launching our new building as well. So it served all these purposes in one. And just to mention a bit about that new building, so you can just kind of see it on the left of the image there, which is the existing Hardiman Library. You can just see it's kind of grey concrete beams there. Moves on to the glass kind of fronted facade in the middle, and then on the right is the Hardiman Research Building. Now the whole building is known as the Hardiman Complex. So the library is one stakeholder on the left. On the right is the research building, which houses archives, special collections, and the storage for archives and special collections. But on the first floor, it's the Whitaker Institute, which is the the Economics Research Institute. And the top floor is the Moore Institute, so Humanities and Social Sciences. So all under one roof are all the major stakeholders for the humanities. We have the researchers, we have the PhDs, we have visiting academics, we have the library itself, and we've also archives and special collections. And right in the middle there is the exhibition space. So basically the width of that whole glass fronted facade in the middle is this huge space we now had to open up and fill. And it was quite amazing to see how much work it took to fill that with a new exhibition. That would be, I suppose, value for money as well, because these take a lot of resources to put together, but would be that performative experience. That would be something new for people to engage with. So just to jump back to the Abbey exhibition itself, I mean, it brought together a huge party of people of various backgrounds and skill sets. I mean, on that team alone, we had archivists from NUIG, from the Abbey Theatre. We had various others from within the Hardiman Library, from digitisation team to senior management, academics from the Centre for Drama, Director of University Communications, the University Press and Marketing team, external graphic designers, and many more from across the Abbey and NUIG. So again, while exhibitions on the Abbey have happened elsewhere in previous times, again, we had to tell something new, and we had to find an atmosphere in which to tell that. And an idea I tried to wrap around the exhibition was, as a visitor to an Abbey Theatre archive exhibition, you should nearly get the experience of going to the Abbey Theatre itself. And to do that, we had an external company design for us some 3D animations or 3D interactive touchscreen panels. So, for example, we took the blueprints, the earliest blueprints we could find for the Abbey, of the whole complex and building. So they were laid out two-dimensional. Obviously, there were digital scans. But when you touch on the foyer, for example, it would come up into 3 dimensions, and up would come all the digital artefacts from that space. So you could interact with each component of the theatre building. So for the foyer, you'd get the posters, you get the box office records, what you'd expect to find in the foyer. You touch on the manager's office, and up, it would take you around to the back of the building where the manager's office was. You'd get the minute books, you'd get the wage books, actors' contracts, so the administration of theatre, you get the business of theatre. And you click on the stage, you get the photographs of performance, you got the scripts. So it was that whole experience of actually seeing all the different parts of what theatre performance was. And the second part of what we wanted to tell was the process of digitisation as well. This was a huge project, huge amount of team expertise working on it. And you can just see to the right of the screen there my colleague Aisling Keane there. She's digital archivist and was working on much of the project. So Aisling just represents that digitisation work. And just to tell the story of digitisation as well, it was something new for people to encounter. And when you get the kind of figures that the project brought out, I'm just trying to read it there on the screen myself, but I think it was 30 terabytes of data, which to me means probably very little, but to break it down into other terms, it was something like 390,000 CD discs of data. So if you had everything on the Abbey, thank God for cloud storage today, because if we were to store that archive, it would be something like nearly 500,000 CD discs, so that's the kind of data we're dealing with. But we had this type of material then to work with, beautiful, beautiful posters, photographs, minute books from W.B. Yeats, and the minute books have been recently launched online as well. So it blends the physical exhibition in the foyer to the online exhibition as well through the digitised minute books, which are all transcribed as well. So it's a fantastic resource. This image is a personal favourite of mine. It's like a Sacred Heart, isn't it? W.B. Yeats presiding over the box office, So it's some of these images were all seen for the first time as well. So it's great to bring them all out and tell something new. So we also included for the first time costumes. This was something completely alien to us. We don't really have costumes in our collections, but the Abbey Theatre, obviously beautiful costume collections. And what were just simply window boxes outside the library. Now they were floored with wooden floors on the bottom. They were just light boxes to go down to the canteen underneath. But again, it was just a great idea people had to actually make these into a costume display. And what a shop window to put out to draw people in, So the Abbey costume team, just to see them at work there, installed their costumes into the boxes. And it was a real hit with audiences. So again, we're very central on campus. The main thoroughfare of football on campus, if you see this walking past, it does draw you in. So it was a great exhibition to be part of. So a second one then, or a next example at least, which was another learning curve, was to do a completely shared, perhaps entirely digital you might say, but a co-exhibited international exhibition. And this was where we partnered with the Russian State Art Library in Moscow, where we did an exhibition on the shared history of Irish and Russian theatre. So again, to develop something like that, is we both shared digitally our content. We took theirs, they took ours, and we supplemented it with original materials from our own collections. So we worked mostly with just material that worked well for that type of project. So it was mostly photographic records, and these are from the Russian State Art Library in Moscow, of the original production of The Seagull by Chekhov. And the reason we chose that play is because it probably has one of the biggest histories between Ireland and Russia. Tom Kilroy, the playwright, is former professor of English in NUIG, and we have his archive, and he adapted what scholars say is the definitive adaptation of The Seagull. So we focused on that, and again, just to take out these images never before seen outside of Russia, not to mention in Ireland, so it was a real first. And again, likewise for our material to go to Russia as well. And we actually had the curator from the Russian Art Library join us in Galway to launch the exhibition, which is really wonderful. But again, just to play up the importance of using the media to your best advantage. Local media is so important to get people in. We had a spot on just Galway Bay FM that morning ahead of an evening lecture and an evening launch, and unknowns to us, there's a Russian book club in Galway. So we had 20 Russians arrive in that evening, which was amazing. And they were you could actually see how touched they were to see part of their own history and culture for them to connect with in Galway. So it was really wonderful. But again, purely chance. Again, this is some of the Russian images from the 19th century up to present day. Adding in our material, it's Tom Kilroy, and again the Royal Court production, which starred actually the late Alan Rickman and Alan Stanford there as well, another cast member. But to move on to our more current examples of Yeats in the West, which was our offering for 2015, and of course Yeats 150, which was the global celebration of Yeats's birth, and this was a kind of another step up again. Now we're into kind of global commemorations, so it was something we really had to think about. So we were 6-7 months in the planning for this, probably November, December 2014, where Adrian Patterson, lecturer in English, and an absolutely wonderful colleague to work on this project, came to us, and he was on the steering committee for the Yeats commemorations anyway. He's a Yeatsian, he's an expert in Yeats, and he said, look, what can we do on this? So it was something we really explored, but Yeats means something to someone everywhere in the world. So we had to do something. We brought it back to the roots. We brought it back to the West, but also back to the library. This exhibition was to come out of the library. And if you're a student, if you're sitting at home, if you're sitting at home, and you want to read Yeats poetry, you just might. You turn to Google, you type in, The Lake Isle of Innisfree or The Wild Swans of Cool, and up comes the poem on screen. But you lose all context of the book itself. And that's the idea of bringing it all back to the library, where we have all these beautiful first editions. And Yeats wrote consciously books of poetry that they tell a story across the whole volume, not just the iTunes phenomenon where it's a single song now, and all the concept of an album doesn't really exist anymore. So this is the idea we wanted to do. And the example there was the very, very first one, The Wanderings of Oisin and Other Poems. Such a simple little edition, 1898, was Yeats' very first publication. But again, if you chased the publication history through the special collections, just 10 years later, you see he might have been a modest young poet here. 10 years later, this is his offering, so you can see so much when you actually put the book back into people's minds, and back into people's hands as well, which was really the concept, And we threw out as much as we could just to show how publication, and again, we were conscious of this being a teaching exhibition. So there's MAs in literature and publishing, you have BAs in English. All BA groups were timetabled, compulsory visits to the exhibition, and set tasks set to the students, questions and various answers that they could only get from the exhibition. I mentioned media and marketing already, absolutely vital. So something like a good launch to give it a good footing, absolutely essential. Get as many people there as you can. We're very lucky to have great support on campus. Branding as well. We've consciously carried the same themes, even fonts, colour schemes across. Create a brand for your exhibition, something that translates across various media very well. Even our university marketing and press team were wonderful. They got us a spot on Pat Kinney's show on News Talk. Pat having a real Yeatsian moment there, real deep discussion there, as you can see. But to have that kind of national outreach, as well as going back to local audiences with Galway Bay FM, Connemara Radio, which we're on as well. Just great to get the word out there. These were just some panels from the exhibitions, and again talking about local links. The tapestries which are reproduced there on the bottom right are from Lochbray Cathedral, which was a family affair. So Jack B. Yeats did the illustrations. The Yeats sisters, Lily and Lolly, did the embroidery. So it was a very different Yeats exhibition. It was about family and craft. It's went into 2016. You couldn't leave out 1916. The Abbey Theatre was at the centre of all that. Drawing in other collections as well. Put as much as we could out there. So we used a lot of Arthur Shields' archive. Bottom left there, a very small picture of Arthur Shields playing Kathleen Houlihan opposite Lady Gregory. Completely unique material that we have. So it was to bring in as many elements as possible. This was something very new for us as well. So it was to have include artworks. And we don't do this too often. The two paintings on the right were a loan from a private donor for the duration of the exhibition. So they were original Jack B. artworks, worth priceless, and we had to manage these, which was something very different. Logistically, we had to remove lighting from the ceiling so there wouldn't be heat gain from them. All these concepts, insurance as well, that you just learn as you go. So again, that was great things to be part of. So the exhibition went to Sligo, up to the Model Gallery, very much a homecoming for the exhibition. We were worried about academic audiences in Galway. There was no one more expert on Yeats than Sligo people. We did 6 weekly lectures up there. And Adrian, as a senior academic in Yates, he was telling me, these people are, they really know their stuff. Brilliant people, brilliant audience every week. We had school groups in from local schools in Sligo, history, gave them workshops on archives, English, Adrian gave them workshops on Yates's poetry, drama students, another colleague of ours, Ian Walsh, in drama, gave them workshops on directing. So it was to get as many people on as many levels as possible. So that's just kind of a summary of how we tried to make the exhibition a teaching exhibition, make it a teaching resource. We've a couple more plans to do, like podcasting. We have the lectures in Sligo recorded, going to disseminate these online and make a podcast series out of them. But just the thing is to use the space as best we can and to create that atmosphere that students are not just coming in, looking at nice wallpaper, but make something really dimensional and tangible. Put the book back in front of them, put the archive back in front of them, and hopefully get them something new. Thanks very much.